Hey everybody, video here for you today. Now I'm going over questions and comments for my Q&A video, and I haven't had a lot of time to put that one together, but it's just slowly coming together. So that one will be a few days out at least, but a few of those questions I thought were excellent and reminded me of places that I should have made a video on, or made a video where I actually talked on it. And one of them was I visited Egypt 3 months ago. I visited the Hathor temple at Dendera. Have you ever done a video on that? And I have done a video on that, but it was just set to music and I just showed people around. And that was, I think, more than a couple years ago. And another question was, what is your favorite temple in Egypt? And another one was, have you ever done a video on the temple at Dendera? So I want to make a video on this and talk about this because really this is one of my favorite temples, if not my favorite, just because of all the intricate artwork in this temple and what it actually shows. So I thought I would go down and take a look around and just talk about some of the artwork in that temple and what it means. But here we are going down to Dendera, to the Temple of Hathor, and this is where it is. And personally, I think this wall, the exterior wall, is much older. We have some stonework here that is much more modern, but I think this was built on top of a much more ancient site. Like a lot of sites in Egypt, this is perfectly aligned to north right now. Just slightly kind of off alignment like a lot of those really old structures, but let's just go down and take a look around. Now here we are inside of the outer hall, and this temple is all about the cow-eared goddess Hathor. And here, the 4 heads of Hathor, those represent the 4 cardinal points, and I guess it symbolizes the universal principle of the sky goddess, and she is called the Lady of the 4 Faces. Now here is one look at an interior chamber, and a lot of this artwork has deteriorated over the years. Here is the winged disc up here, and I guess the Romans did a lot of restoration work here a little over 2,000 years ago, and the gods have really evolved by the time that they were inscribing stuff in here, but a lot of really old knowledge. And here is the goddess Hathor, and in a John Anthony West video, he says that she is depicted kind of in the form of a uterus. The sky goddess depicted with the cow ears. I don't argue with that at all. Just thought I would mention that. But that is an interior chamber in here. Now the ceiling down here is just spectacular. And it all has to do with the zodiac and the skies and the heavens. But here you see some gods on a staircase. And this scene, you can't really see it here because the columns block it, but I just wanted to give you a little look at the inside of this temple. But this staircase has some of the most famous gods in all of Egypt. Atum, Geb, Nut, Osiris, Nephthys, Hathor. But they are on a stairway, and let me just show you what the full scene looks like here. Now this is what that full scene looks like. And this is called the waxing of the moon. And here is the moon on a pillar, presented by Thoth, the ibis-headed god here. But these gods here, leading up to the staircase, this is all about the healed eye of Horus here, presented by Thoth. And it is called Wadjet. That's what the healed eye is called. But these 14 gods on these 14 stairs, and these 14 stairs represent the 14 days that lead up to the healing of the full moon, I guess, that is the way that should be interpreted. But some of the most famous gods in Egypt here, the waxing of the moon. Now, let's just take a look at the ceiling here, but this will give you a good idea. They cleaned this not too long ago. So you see the bright colors in here. This, half of it remains uncleaned, but this is all about the vulture god Nebuchadnezzar. That's kind of an unknown god here, but this is the vulture god Nebuchadnezzar, and the whole ceiling here, you can see, is all about the vulture god, but only half of this was cleaned, so that'll give you an idea of what centuries of soot looks like on a temple ceiling. But part of it was cleaned, but that ceiling is amazing. Now, here we have a very interesting scene, and this four-headed ram, flying ram god, this personifies the south wind. Here, you can't see it very well, I'm sure, but here is a frog-headed and a snake-headed goddess, and this is Het and Hetet. But this here, this is Osiris as a personification of the moon sailing across the sky. And these kneeling falcon gods here, these represent the souls of Pe. And these kneeling jackal gods represent the souls of Neken. And who are the souls of Pe and the souls of Neken? Well, those are the souls of the pre-dynastic gods on the king's list that are not recognized by current-day Egyptology. That's who these souls represent. And two of the oldest forms of gods in all Egypt, Horus, and of course the jackal, the original god of Giza. But the text above here says that Osiris has entered the eye of the moon on the 15th day of the month. And the boat is sailing across the night sky, supported by the four goddesses, representing the four cardinal points of the sky. But I think this is a pretty cool panel in a temple that has hundreds and hundreds of these, but the symbolism is rich in here, and it seems that we have a story of creation, or maybe the recreation of a place. And we have some of the oldest gods, the falcon, and the jackal, representing the souls of the pre-dynastic kings. If they're just mythical, are they represented in such a way in a temple? Well, I don't know. But the frog goddesses here, or the frog god and frog-headed goddess, they represent the primordial waters, the invisible, and I just think we have a story of the recreation of a place here, and the south winds represent, and the south represents the place of creation in Egypt, Upper Egypt, where the Nile flows from. Now here is an image of the travels of Orion and Sirius across the night sky. This here is Orion, and he is identified as Sahu. Looking back, and here is a cow with the star of Sirius depicted in the horns, and this is Orion looking back at the star Sirius on the travel across the night sky. This goddess here with the star over her head, she represents the 12th hour of the night, and this is the god Shu with the feather over the head, and he is the god that separates the sky and the earth. I think that's the best way to say it. But that makes sense. The god Shu, who separates the earth and the sky, the 12th hour of the night, looking back at the constellation of Orion. That's how he is depicted, looking back at the star Sirius on their travel across the celestial Nile in the boats. And this here, this is a star that is represented, and it is called Horus upon his pillar. And I'm not quite positive what star they're referring to there. But here is another area of the ceiling depicted. This is the constellation of Pisces, the two fish with the water symbol between them. These goddesses right here are goddesses of I think the 4th and 5th hour of the night. So this is really a map of the heavens. And here, people have said this is a god holding a small pig. But to me, this looks like a baby jackal in the middle of the sun disk, looking east. The sky goddess Nut, she extends over a lot of these scenes here, but here you see her feet, and this is where the sun is born from each day, that region of her body, of course. That just makes sense. Here you see Cancer depicted, and it is near this birthplace of the sun, and on the famous Dendera zodiac, that it seems the very early Egyptians were depicting where time spirals out of. And Cancer is depicted, really the first constellation in that spiral, telling me that Egyptian civilization was created over 10,000 years ago. And it seems they give a hint here. Cancer is depicted near the birthplace of the sun, telling me again that what became Egyptian civilization started 10,000 years ago. Now, this wavy pattern symbolizes the cosmic river that these celestial objects travel across. And this day symbolizes the first day of the Egyptian New Year, where they would carry a statue of Hathor up to the roof to absorb the first rays of the sun of the new year. And you see these boats here. Right in front of this boat, there is a cow in a boat with a star above the head, and the horns depicting Sirius. And Sirius would go away for a couple weeks, and then when it would start rising again, that would just signal the flooding of the Nile Valley and rebirth and regeneration. And right here, you notice there is a small boat with a lotus flower and then a snake emerging from it, and I know that is upside down, but if you can just make that out, boat, lotus flower, and a snake emerging from it, well, that is pretty important. But that just depicts the lotus flower, depicts the first thing that emerged from the primordial waters. And this snake right here represents the first rising of the sun on the first day of creation. And that really fits in with the Dendera light bulb. And I made a video about that and what that truly means. And that also has a lotus flower and a snake coming out of it. Same imagery, this just doesn't have a bulb around it. Now, here are 3 jackals, and they are pulling bark with the rising sun in it. And here they come across 4 baboons. And the baboons, the depiction over their heads calls them the souls of the East. And I have 4 baboons on my channel page pic. And somebody asked me about that. But baboons were seen in ancient Egypt worshipping the rising sun, it seemed. But they were kind of warming themselves in the sun's rays. So they got put into that symbolism of the rising sun. But that is a pretty important and famous thing in ancient Egypt is the 4 baboons. And they are simply worshipping the rising sun. Now, here is another representation on the ceiling. And here is Anubis. And this is kind of how he is depicted on the Dendera zodiac, but he is upon what they say is a hoe. Here is Scorpio. Here is the falcon-headed god. And by the Egyptians' description, he is the god of Mars. And they talk about him traveling backwards. So that probably is an obvious reference to the retrograde of Mars, even though that wasn't uncommon, but the Egyptians noticed that big time. Now this goddess here with a star by her head, I believe this is the 5th hour of the night, the goddess of the 5th hour of the night. But strangely, it seems they refer to the jackal here as a constellation. I just find that a little bit odd. And this is at the center of the Dendera zodiac. Now, we have all sorts of snake symbolism on the ceiling here, but here you see a double snake-headed god, and he is carrying a sail in his left hand, and he represents the god of the west wind, the westerly wind. And here is the god Atum sitting on his throne, holding a scepter. Now here is a panel where the 12 hours of the day are depicted in different ways. And this depicts, I believe, the 12th hour of the day. This is in that panel. And here you see 4 jackal-headed bird gods. And they protect the sun's voyage across the sky during the day. But this in the 12th hour, they are depicted this way. And the text describes these guys as the 4 souls who greet the sun as it sets, and being a jackal-headed falcon would make total sense there. That is a little look at some of the artwork in the Temple of Hathor, the four-faced goddess representing the four cardinal points, and that really, I think, ties in with the four pillars of creation in the myth of Osiris. But here is some more artwork here. But you have the vulture god represented in the center strip of the ceiling, and then voyages across the heavens. And here you have Cancer, seem to be at the same place as the birthplace of the sun. And Cancer is at the very center point, or the very first constellation represented in the spiral in the Dendera zodiac. I think that's hugely important. And you have Anubis, the first god of Giza, at the center here. And they say in that one glyph that it was actually a constellation. But throughout the artwork you have Anubis, and he was depicted as the soul of pre-dynastic kings. There are just hints everywhere from this temple that Egypt started 10,000 years ago, in my opinion. But that is all up for debate. But that is a look at some of the artwork in the Temple of Dendera. Fascinating place. Seems that they have a mixture, a dual symbolism of the creation of the day and also maybe the recreation of civilization. But that is a look at some of the artwork. If I talked about it all, I would be here for hours. Hope you enjoyed it, and you all have a very nice day.